Now, before that, let's have a look to the future. Mal Fletcher joins me now. Nice to meet you. Good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. AI. Now, I'm in the middle of watching a podcast at the moment with an AI specialist who's really, really worried about AI. And then I was reading something today where I think the US has said, no, it's nothing to worry about. AI is fine. Somebody from defence in the United States has said that today. So where is the truth in this?
Well, there's arguments on both sides. The first thing we've got to remember, though, Petrie, is when we talk about intelligence, artificial intelligence, we're talking about intelligence that is not human intelligence. It's value neutral. It's mathematical calculations based on programming and data. So it doesn't make moral choices. We have to do that for it. It's single focus intelligence, at least for the moment. It's good at carrying out, complex single level tasks like winning a game of chess, but it's not so good at performing multiple focus tasks simultaneously in the way that the brain does. So it's nowhere near what scientists call artificial general intelligence, where a machine, in theory anyway, could perform any task at least as well as a human. So, and the other thing we've got to bear in mind is that neuroscience is becoming increasingly curious as to whether there's a difference between the human brain and human mind or human consciousness. I'm informed that there are now more than 900 published clinical studies around the world in some of the world's leading medical journals that look seriously at unusual phenomena like near-death experiences. And many are authored by leading brain scientists. They're not sure how this works, but they're getting curious and beginning to entertain the idea that maybe the brain and the mind are two separate but related entities. That would mean that even if we created an artificial general intelligence similar to the brain, we couldn't guarantee that that machine could be said to have anything like consciousness. And you mentioned the person watching it with you. Pioneers of AI are most concerned not so much about the intelligence of machines that could be attained, but the thought of conscious machines. That's what bothers people the most.
And consciousness, as we said, I mean, it's a philosophical debate, isn't it? What is being conscious? What is that part of our brains? Because, we've all of our brains behave in a very different way and in a very similar way, both at the same time. And if that's brain or consciousness, then that's what they're trying to determine at the moment. But the other thing that I understand as well is that the things that we consider to be incredibly easy, because we do it unconsciously, if that had to be programmed into AI, it would be incredibly complicated, like stopping and crossing a road. But the awareness of your surroundings, checking car, all of those things, that we do that almost without thinking. But if that had to be a programmable thing, that would be extremely complicated to get a computer or general intelligence to understand what to do and why they were doing it. So that it does feel in that sense that AI is quite a long way away from being conscious.
Yeah, it's a very long way in my view. We don't really understand how the human brain works. So scientists now are talking about AI that's built on artificial neural networks. That's computer networks that operate in a similar way to the brain. Well, if we don't understand what the brain does, we haven't got much chance anytime soon of developing something that works exactly like the brain. I mean, we're impressed. ChatGPT and things like it, they seem like magic to us at times in what they can achieve. But they're running, we mustn't forget, on mainly human-generated data. They're fed human-generated data when they're trained, and then they continue to pick up human-generated data as they, quote, learn, unlearn in human-like ways across a number of genres online. So they're learning from human-generated data and they're feeding back to us in new packages, things that have been generated by humans in the first place. So we mustn't underestimate AI. There are areas of caution, but we shouldn't overestimate it and become paranoid.
Also, presumably, that these groups, Mal, this learning is disparate. You're teaching chat I always call it GP, but you know, the chat bots, you teach them one thing and that's all they know how to do. It may be multiples of things they're doing, but that's all. They wouldn't go off and design a weapon, for example. So that's one strand of the brain. It's sort of isolated part of the brain. And then you have another robot that you're teaching to move metal sheets or pack boxes. And that isn't going to go off and learn how to make a weapon to kill the human race. So presumably the issue is about when or if you could bring all of these intelligent strands together to form a kind of computer brain where they've got the brain knows all of these different things. Or am I completely left of field here?
No, that's exactly what we mean, Petrie, by the term artificial general intelligence. So what we've got now is AI. It's very limited. AGI, in theory anyway, would be able to do almost anything you and I can do, but we're nowhere near that yet. And you're absolutely right. It is sort of sequestered learning. It's in categories. So we take ChatGPT because most people are aware of it now.
Yeah.
It's a large language model, so it's trained using huge amounts of language-based data. But as you suggest, it's not much good for other things, which is why we have to train other forms of generative AI in music and visuals.
Yeah.
They're totally separate, so separate package. So yes, there are categorizations going on, but we don't have AGI yet.
And how far away do you think AGI is?
Well, that's difficult because
it's speeding up exponentially, isn't it?
Yes,
this is the thing.
It is. And a lot of it depends on standards that are set in place for the ethics. And people like me have been pushing for almost a decade that we start seeing major boards made up of people like ethicists, philosophers, scientists, technologists, engineers, even theologians, to come up with a sense of what are the ethical guidelines we need to help us with research and development of AI. How far should we go? How far shouldn't we go? And then governments have to back that up with regulation. That, by the way, is what happened in 2015 with human genetic engineering. There were internationally agreed guidelines for ethics, and these were backed up by, in most Western countries, by policy, by law. And it's still us in good stead for protecting from the abuses of that particular type of science.
But it would be naive to think those abuses weren't going on somewhere. They just can't be published or talked about. And that seems to be the problem at the moment with AI, is that FOMO, fear of missing out. Somebody saying, well, if we don't build it, somebody else will build it, and we need to be the one to have built it. And so even if you say, well, they won't build it, you go, well, I'm still going to build it, because you want to be ahead of, and that is the problem. That's human, unfortunately, that's the human brain, isn't it? And that's human nature, is that just because we say you can't do it, it doesn't mean it's not being done.
That's true. And one of the reasons why we need ethical standards agreed across the board for AI is that we have to draw a line between pragmatism and what I call ultra-pragmatism. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with being pragmatic, looking for a result. But ultra-pragmatism is where we say that if we can do it, we should do it.
Yeah,
that's never been a good policy.
That's never worked in humanity.
Never worked.
Look at Oppenheimer. I mean, just casing.
Exactly.
And AI has been described really as we could be approaching our Oppenheimer moment. That there could be a point of no return, and if those laws and ethics and philosophers don't do something now, then we're going to be like Oppenheimer, going, "I wish I'd never done it."
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, ethics, the reason ethics is so important is that it essentially, as a branch of philosophy, answers just two simple questions. What's the right thing to do? And how do I apply that in a difficult, non-black and white, non-binary choice? And we need ethicists today, and we need others to speak into it from a broad range of disciplines, not just from the technology field. Yeah. The problem with the techno kings, the people who head up these big companies that are leading the AI drive, many of them don't have a lot of interest in the ethics of it. You know, it's
And that's
about
not
the
their
money and
job,
the
is
data.
it? They're
Well,
there to
not
they're there to
really.
build the thing. That that's and they get excited, and you can't stop a scientist or a geek or a computer expert just to you've almost split the atom. Just stop right there. I mean, I know we've done that already, but you know what I mean. You're not going to be able to say to somebody, "Oh, that's a really good code," but don't write any more.
Yeah, well, regulation could say you can go this far, but no further with that particular. We know you can do that, but maybe you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with genetic engineering, of course, now. That's the point of legislation, to, in a sense, censor what is allowed to be done on behalf of the broader humanity. So we need that. But at the same time, we don't want to stifle progress in areas where it could help humankind, in education, in law, in policing, in all sorts of areas. It could be a great help.
Can we, just briefly, because I'm running out of time, because I want to talk to you for the next 4 days on this, but can we teach computers ethics? Can we teach general intelligent machines ethics? Is it just code, or is that something of the mind rather than the brain?
Yeah, I think that it's something of the brain. It's something of the logic that we use in ethics. Yes, that can be taught to machines, but the mind, the consciousness aspect, we might speak of old terms like conscience. That would be part of consciousness.
Yeah.
So that sort of inbuilt sense of, well, this seems logical, but is it right? I don't feel like it's right. And it causes us to go back and question the premise again. So that's not teachable to a machine. And the other thing you can't teach a machine, this is very important to our listeners to know this, is empathy. One of the few things you can't teach a machine to do is empathize, because by definition, empathy requires a shared human experience, and a machine can't have that. So if you're in a job, for example, that involves a lot of therapy skills, people listening skills, people interacting skills, you're very well placed in the age of AI to hold on to your job, because it's the one thing, that therapeutic side. Even in courts of law, we won't have robot judges passing judgment anytime soon, because human beings need to know that there's somebody up there deciding their fate that understands the human condition, that can empathize with us.
Wow. Will you come back and talk to me again endlessly for days on end at some point?
I'd love to. You ask great questions.
Thank you. I'm just fascinated by it, and you are just feeding that fascination. So thank you so much. Mal Fletcher there, who's a